as an executive, is trying to destroy the power of the other branches of government by ignoring their authority, by mounting
but they don't have
aggressive legalistic defenses like the ones that you're making in
don't-
order to expand the power of the presidency and be able to act with impunity.
Judges
which is
don't
part
have
of
the
why
authority
he's
to do
sending
that.
them. Sure. I mean, look, I'm not a legal scholar. Generally, I would have said that, presidents, I think, tend to follow judicial orders more than Trump tends to, right?
Let me ask you a question. If a judge ordered you to shoot a man in the head, would that be illegal? I'm using an extreme example on purpose.
Yeah.
It's obviously no. A judge can't order you to kill somebody. That's crazy. But we're not talking about a judge ordering Trump to kill anybody. We're talking about judges in, I think we're up to like 87 instances, issuing universal mandates across the entire nation based on lawsuits of single individuals. So what, for example, a recent one was the transgender military ban. Donald Trump issued an executive order saying, DSM-5 mental disorder, you are now going to be inadmissible from the armed forces and will be severed unless you are not showing symptoms. A judge ruled from this point forward, the military under Trump must admit all individuals regardless of any mental disorder. The judges only have the authority over the people in their courtroom unless it's a class action lawsuit. Universal injunctions are not constitutional.
Like Brown versus Board of Ed. When a person brings a
Board of
lawsuit to
Education
the
is
government,
country, right?
So a person brings a lawsuit to the government about to a judge or the Supreme Court about a law being unconstitutional, and the ruling should only affect that case. It shouldn't affect
it literally affects the
law.
It affects the law.
Uh-huh.
So in the issue of lower courts and this universal injunction, lower courts have the authority over the singular individuals in their courtroom unless it's a class action. So they could have made it a class action. They could have sent out the letters. They could have gotten the signatures and said, we need X amount of transgender military service men and women because we want this to apply to all. Instead, what happened was, and I'll argue this is where it encroaches into the authoritarian. The judge said all means all. That's a quote. This created a huge uproar because it meant that the military now had to enlist schizophrenics. That if someone showed up suffering from manic depressive disorder and they were paraplegic, they were now under this universal injunction entitled to join the military. But I mean, a schizophrenic bipolar who's suffering delusions is not going to be able to complete basic training. Now, perhaps there'd be an argument, as you're saying it, if the judge only said this stay will apply just to transgender military men and women, but they didn't. It was a woman. She said it applies to everybody. So Trump said, okay, I'm not even going to defy that. We're going to appeal it. He didn't even ignore the order. They went to SCOTUS, and SCOTUS...
You think Trump even knows any of this was happening?
Probably not.
Well, I mean, I don't think he's
I'd say he probably knew it was happening, but I don't think he had a hand in the day-to-day operations of it.
Uh-huh.
For any boss.
Yeah, it's just funny that we go, oh, Trump said this, Trump said that. Trump, I mean, he certainly hates trans people, but I don't think he's and doesn't want them in the military, but I don't think he's following the day-to-day of the case.
I agree.
He's doing loop-de-loops out on the golf course. But the legalistic points that you're making to me, it's all a fig leaf for the larger thing that he's doing, which is bending the law in these bizarre ways. What is the point of sending people to El Salvador, right? To this prison in El Salvador. Part of the reason to send him there, to send Abrigo Garcia there as quickly as possible, is it just shields him from the rest of the legal system, right? It makes it harder to get him back, right? If you send
he's El Salvadoran.
Yeah, but my point is he's entitled to due process as someone who's in America, right? If you shove people into this hole in another country as quickly as possible, it gives you plausible deniability. I don't really give a shit about the various again legalistic little nuances of the ruling. The important part to me is Trump saying, being under an order to bring the guy back and saying, I can't because the president of El Salvador, my best friend, says he won't return him, right?
How would he get him to do it?
saying El Salvador is basically a client state of the Trump administration at this point. He'll do whatever he wants. Like Bukele will suck his dick. Like it doesn't matter.
Want something in return?
Yeah, sure. What give him what, like
Maybe
they're friends. Yeah. So it's a fig leaf, right? It's like it's in order to the reason to do it is to just make it more difficult to do the right thing.
I suppose the issue is when Abrego Garcia got deported, the administration right out was like, this is an administrative error. It was an oversight on the withholding of deportation. The Supreme Court ultimately ruled that Trump must facilitate his return. And now the political debate is, what does facilitate mean? The Supreme Court hasn't clarified, which they definitely need to do when you have two factions arguing. The left argues it means literally bring him back. And the right says, no, it means provide him the means to return should he be able. And then I say, okay, the Supreme Court can literally just come out right now and issue like a writ and be like, no, we mean go and negotiate. However, the other challenge is Supreme Court also stated that no one can direct the executive branch to conduct foreign policy. So this would mean that Donald Trump could get him back in the sense that he could negotiate simple terms very easily. He could literally say to Bukele, listen, you're going to release the guy from prison. You're going to do it. If you want to keep working with us, if you want our money, you're going to do it. And then we're going to bring him back. Bukele would begrudgingly say yes, probably. There is the concern that Bukele would say, I win my presidency on going after MS-13. You've got to give a concession publicly in some way so that it looks like, but you're not going to look, if you shrug or not, the issue is, are we going to direct the executive branch through the judiciary to conduct foreign policy? And you can't do that. So I agree. Trump, here's what just happened right now. The executive courts, this is what they have, their immigration courts, should conduct a Zoom meeting with Abrego Garcia, and we're done. It's over. That's his due process. Look, he's an El Salvadoran citizen in El Salvador who was imprisoned by El Salvador.
My point is this: the reason there's any number of things that they could do. There's some things that both of us agree that they should do. There's more things that I think they should do than you do, but et cetera. The point is, they are like loudly and proudly not doing any of that, deporting a guy they know shouldn't be deported.
But that's hold on. That's not true in any of the media. The media, the full reporting that we get across the board from the New York Times to CNN to even Fox News was he was accidentally deported without his hearing on withholding. So it wasn't an intentional, we're going to get this guy and get him out. It was crap.
So when Trump is like holding up photos of his tattoos with like MS-13 on it, and like they're giving press conferences about he beat his wife, they're doing character, assassination on the guy, like all of that is accidental.
No, that's a political attack against Democrats.
Yeah, right. So here, let me just get to the end of my point, okay? Is that, they turn it into a political attack because they are acting lawlessly. They're proud to be acting lawlessly. The point is to demonstrate on this issue we will act lawlessly. You're not safe if you are, even under the protection of a court order in this country, and you should be frightened and you should leave. It's just like it's an authoritarian attack against immigrants directly, and it's designed. It's a leverage of it's a leveraging of the state to try to frighten immigrants and other groups, not only illegal immigrants. Okay, so let's talk about the students who have been detained and deported, right? These are people who are under student visas, right? They appear at a protest or two, and they're thrown into vans, they're held in these bizarre facilities. They're blah blah. There's multiple cases.
If you want to say
the point of this is to frighten people at universities, pro-Palestinian protesters, and that means any protester on the left, of course, and immigrants of all types, including those who are here on legal immigrant visas. Like the details of the individual cases don't matter. They like creating a firestorm around someone who is here legally, creating a huge controversy about them, and then saying, we don't give a fuck. We're going to do whatever we want to these people because we want you to be be afraid, right?
But that's not,
and that to me is
illegal.
that's an expression of like pure authoritarianism. It's a leveraging of state power to frighten, undergroups in society that these people don't like. It's like very straightforward. We can mount as many legal defenses as we want of it and say, blah, 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 according to this statute or that statute. But the actual action is just designed to frighten people Trump doesn't like. And it's bizarre to see him do it.
Let's say yes, but none of that's illegal. That's all actually codified law that they're allowed to do.
Okay, yeah, sure. It's fucking bullshit. It sucks. It's bad. It's bad for the country. It's bad for the American spirit.
We can talk about a lot of bad things that every administration's done in the past that liberals and Democrats have covered up or participated in or didn't argue against.
Yeah, I guess why. I mean, we're talking about this one currently. It feels disingenuous to talk about one thing the Trump administration is doing because Democrats have done bad things too?
Well, like, for instance, Donald Trump, through Marco Rubio specifically, revoking student visas, saying that these individuals represent a threat to our national security by adhering to our enemies. And literally, that's what they're claiming. I think it's ridiculous to claim that a student who's anti-Israel is working with Hamas. That's silly. But that's the argument he's making, and under the INA, he has the authority to do it. So you say, okay, well, when people come in here on student visas, they do sign agreements saying they won't do certain things. They do it. They get kicked out.
So this is okay with you because it's narrowly legal under Marco Rubio's, purview?
I would say what's fine with me is the revocation of a visa for someone who's not a citizen who's here conditionally. Like Mohammed Khalil, who was on a conditional temporary visa. So if it gets revoked, I just say like, well, that's a conditional visa. I don't go to Singapore and spit on the ground. I'll get caned.
So sorry, you think what's happened to those students is like, that's okay with you, not legally, I'm talking about like as an event that occurred in the country, you're like, oh, it's good that happened, it's okay with me, you think it's moral, you think it's right, you think it's just. I'm not talking about legally, I'm talking about like, you say you 60%? Don't. 60%.
Yeah, like nothing's so easily black and white.
Rumeysa Ozturk, who, she wrote an op-ed. The only thing that anybody has even claimed that she's done is she wrote an extremely mild op-ed in her campus newspaper asking that the college like sort of consider being supportive of the Palestinian cause in some vaguely defined way. Yeah. Her visa's revoked. She, we've all seen the video, right? People come and like grab her and literally put her into a vehicle.
She was arrested.
They're wearing masks, right? She's stopped in an alarming way on the street, right?
It's not like they filmed that and published that footage though. That was security camera footage.
Yeah, but they did it in if you want a student, like a young woman, there's other ways to arrest them than have 6 people show up wearing masks, surround her in a pincer formation. Like it's designed to create terror. So like what's
do it that way. Agreed.
Okay, great.
They didn't have, and Biden's DOJ didn't need to show up at Roger Stone's house at 4 a.m.
Sure, and you know what? If you want to bring up another example, I'll say I condemn that as well.
Agreed.
If that'll keep us on this topic for a second.
We've had numerous instances across administrations that have acted similarly. Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. So subscribe and come hang out.